It was 11:47 p.m. The world outside her window was quiet, but Emily's heart was anything but. She sat at the edge of her bed, her fingers wrapped around a mug of tea long gone cold. Her Bible lay open beside her, pages slightly wrinkled from years of use and tears. 32 years old, faithful, independent, strong, and deeply tired of pretending she wasn't lonely. She had celebrated everyone else's love story, held bouquets, smiled through bridal showers, listened to engagement stories that all sounded like fairy tales. And every night, she returned home to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the aching kind. That night, she didn't pray politely. She didn't pray safely. She broke. God, her voice trembled. I don't want just anyone. I want the man you chose for me, even if he's different from what I imagine. Even if he challenges me, just don't let me miss him. Her shoulders shook, and for the first time in years, she let go of her checklist. Height, career, income bracket, personality type. She surrendered the image. She had no idea that heaven had already begun moving. 3 days later, her car broke down. Of course it did, right in front of a small cafe she had never noticed before. She sighed, frustration rising. She had a meeting. Her hair was only half cooperating. And now, this. After calling roadside assistance, she stepped inside the cafe, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The smell of roasted coffee beans filled the air. Soft acoustic music played, and that's when she saw him. He was seated by the window. Sunlight caught the side of his face, highlighting strong features, softened by a thoughtful expression. His sleeves were rolled up just enough to reveal toned forearms. His hair slightly tousled. Not careless, just natural. He wasn't flashy, but he was undeniably handsome, the kind of handsome that didn't demand attention, yet quietly held it. She looked away quickly. Don't stare. But then she heard his voice. Low, warm, steady. Lord, give Daniel strength tonight. Help him believe he's not forgotten. She froze. He wasn't on the phone. He was praying, right there. Not performative, not loud, just sincere. Something in her chest tightened. He cared, not just in theory, not just in church on Sundays. He carried people in prayer. A few minutes later, he stood to grab another napkin and accidentally knocked his notebook off the table. It slid near her feet. She picked it up. Their hands brushed when he reached for it. His eyes met hers, brown, deep, kind in a way that made you feel seen instead of evaluated. Thank you, he said, smiling. Not a charming grin, but a gentle one. It made her heart do something unexpected. I'm Emily. Caleb. His handshake was warm, firm, respectful, not lingering, just enough. They started talking. What was meant to be 5 minutes became an hour. He listened when she spoke, not waiting for his turn, not scanning the room, fully present. When she mentioned her work, he asked thoughtful questions. When she spoke about her church, his eyes lit up. I believe faith should move, he said, not just sit in pews. There was conviction in his voice, but not arrogance. Later, when roadside assistance arrived, she almost felt disappointed. That surprised her. Their second meeting wasn't planned, but somehow, both of them returned to that same cafe the following week. Coincidence? Or something more? This time he stood when she approached, pulled out her chair, not dramatically, just naturally, as if honoring her presence was instinct. He asked about her week, remembered details she had mentioned before. She noticed the way he treated the barista, with patience, gratitude, respect. She noticed how he spoke about the young men he mentored, not as projects but as people. They just need someone to believe in them, he said softly. There was strength in him, but it was controlled, disciplined, safe, and yes, undeniably attractive. When he laughed, his eyes crinkled slightly. When he concentrated, he ran a hand through his hair absent-mindedly. She found herself noticing everything. The way his voice lowered when he spoke about purpose. The way he paused before answering serious questions. The way he prayed before eating, even in public, without embarrassment. That night, she lay in bed, replaying their conversation. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled before falling asleep. Weeks passed. Their conversations deepened. They walked through a nearby park one evening, autumn leaves crunching beneath their steps. The air was cool. She wrapped her arms around herself slightly. Without hesitation, he removed his jacket. You'll get cold, she protested. I'll survive, he replied gently. They talked about dreams, about fears, about what kind of marriage they believed in. I don't want perfect, Caleb said quietly. I want partnership. I want someone who will pray with me when things are hard, not just celebrate when they're easy. Her breath caught slightly. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was revealing himself. And she realized something slowly. He wasn't the image she once built in her mind. He was better. Not because he checked every superficial box, but because he carried integrity, depth, gentleness. He opened doors, walked on the side closest to the street, texted to make sure she got home safely, prayed over her stressful meetings, encouraged her calling. He made her feel protected, not controlled, and that distinction mattered. But love tested is love proven, and tension eventually came. Caleb felt called to expand the outreach program. It would mean risk, financial uncertainty, more responsibility, less comfort. One evening, sitting across from him at dinner, she saw the fire in his eyes as he spoke about the vision, and fear quietly entered her heart. This wasn't the stable, predictable future she imagined. This was faith walking. She began pulling back slightly, not because she didn't care, but because she cared deeply. What if we struggle? She asked softly one night. He didn't dismiss her fear. He reached across the table instead, took her hand. I won't promise you luxury, he said, but I promise you effort. I promise you prayer. I promise I will never stop choosing you. Her heart melted at his sincerity, but fear still whispered. Eventually, overwhelmed, she asked for space, and walking away from him felt like leaving warmth to stand in winter. The silence was harder than she expected. She missed his steady presence, his morning encouragement texts, his prayers. She missed the way he looked at her like she was already part of his future. One Sunday, the pastor said something that pierced her heart. Sometimes the answer to your prayer doesn't look like your preference, but it looks like your growth. Tears streamed down her face, and she prayed for a husband, but resisted the man God shaped for her. That night she knelt again, but this time the prayer was different. God, remove my fear. If he's not from you, close the door. But if he is, make me brave. When she called Caleb, her voice trembled. They met again at the same cafe, same sunlight, same table. But this time she saw him more clearly. Not just handsome, not just kind, but aligned. I was praying for someone safe, she admitted softly. But maybe you sent me someone strong. He smiled, eyes shining slightly. I was praying for a woman who would walk beside me, not behind me. And in that moment, something settled. Not fireworks, not fantasy, peace. The kind that makes you exhale. A year later, she stood at the altar, her hand in his. He looked at her the way he always had, with steadiness, with gratitude, with love that felt chosen, not accidental. During her vows, she whispered, I prayed for a husband, but God gave me a partner, a protector, a man after his own heart. Caleb's voice was firm when he responded, I will lead with humility, love with patience, and choose you every day. And as they walked down the aisle together, she realized something beautiful. The miracle wasn't just that she met him after a prayer. The miracle was that God refined her heart enough to recognize the man who had been worth waiting for. Sometimes, the answer to your prayer doesn't arrive wrapped in perfection. Sometimes, he arrives with rolled-up sleeves, a quiet strength, a sincere prayer, and a love that feels like home.